Good morning, everyone. Today in this episode we will fight, as always we do in every video on this channel, with the utmost character of our world. And today, last episodes we were in China, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and in this episode we will talk about Sino-Roman relations, on Romano-Sino relations, briefly in our modern language, Roman-Chinese contacts. And from history, we know that the sources give the undoubtful evidence about one, most likely from Roman Syria expedition, that reached China about 166 AD, and as the representatives of Marcus Aurelius, Emperor Marcus Aurelius, they gave some gifts to the Chinese authorities, most likely even to the emperor. And we know that about 70 years before, Chinese expedition was doing its best to reach Roman eastern provinces. Unfortunately, they didn't make it because they got lost close to the northern coast of the Caspian Sea. Oof. So we see that two great civilizations of the ancient world, they knew about their existence and they were really interested in collecting some more information about each other and establish mutual contacts. But geographical distance, not only the physical distance in kilometers, but also mountains, rivers, deserts, and all the things in between these two beautiful civilizations was obstacle. At the end of the day, they barely could go through this set of obstacles. But there is a very interesting thing that in 1942, Homer Dubs, an American sinologist, wrote an article. Later, he wrote even a book that most likely, after the Roman defeat of Care, where Crassus actually lost his head literally and metaphorically, and later his head was used as a requisite in the performance of one of the Euripides playwrights. For the Parthian king, the head of Crassus was used. Okay, but this is Roman history, but many of his soldiers who survived the battle were taken into captivity by Parthians. And they were transported to work in the mines on the east of the Parthian states. And we know that eastern frontiers of the Parthian states were in the contact with Chinese. And most likely, Dubs, I encourage you to check the article of Homer Dubs, speculates how it could happen that these Roman soldiers were later transferred to China, and some evidence, especially to Han China, because those days it was Han China, especially to the territory of modern Gansu province and especially the village which is nowadays called Zhelaizhai in the Gansu province, because there is even a folkloric tradition that many of people living there are descendants of these Roman soldiers. And actually, genetic evidence, some people say it confirms, some people say it doesn't, because they can have Indo-Iranian, Indo-European genes by mixing with Tocharians and other Indo-European people from the steppe, maybe. But there are also some artifacts and folkloric tradition we cannot ignore. It was not taken from nowhere, and there is some evidence supporting this theory proposed by Mr. Hobbes. And the Italian writer, already mentioned on this channel, Mr. Valerio Massimo Manfredi, decided to write interesting novel with action set in the half of 3rd century AD, so the crisis of the 3rd century AD, during which the Roman Empire was as its edge of existence. And the main characters of this novel are taken in the Persian captivity, and after some time they reach China and they find these descendants of Roman settlers 3 years before. With respect to the action of the novel, Empire of Dragons by Valerio Massimo Manfredi. I really recommend this elegant novel. When the action of the novel goes to China, we experience some more fantastic elements. So this is historical novel with nicely embedded elements of fantasy, not irritating but nicely fitting to the plot. So it's a nice read and also gives us a lot to think about. And we need to conclude that ancient people were much wiser and much more developed, and their knowledge about the world was much broader than we can think. And the interesting fact is about this Roman remains and folkloric tradition about being descendants of Roman soldiers around this Żelezai village within the Gansu province is a nice evidence and case that folkloric traditions, if they are investigated in a right way and treated as a valuable historical material, they can provide us very interesting details about the past of the region. And if we know the past, we understand the present times. And if we understand the present times, we can shape our future. And we should do so. That's why I encourage you to look for inspirations to be better than we were one day before. Look for inspirations, study, make conclusions, and thanks to the knowledge and wisdom, make our life better around us and with our relatives, and later it will irradiate on our environment, and we will live in a much better world. So take care.